Well, howdy there, Internet students. This is Mr. Hermanson again. Hey, if you're watching this video, then that means you didn't do so well on the 4.1a objective. So I'm just going to go over that quick with you. I think it really helps to have a calculator to help you decide with these exponent problems. It doesn't always work, but at least you can kind of get an idea. So standard form is just writing the normal number. So you would have to do for this first problem 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, or on your calculator you just need to do 4 raised to the 4th power, which is 256. Now when you have negatives, you got to be careful. Some calculators will actually do it wrong, and I'll show you that here. If I do -4 on this calculator and then I raise it to the 4th power, it's actually going to do the problem wrong. It's going to tell me it's 256. On this kind of calculator, you actually have to do 4 to the 4th first. And then once you have that answer, whoa, let's try that again. 4 to the 4th. Once you have that answer, you just make that a negative. So with the negative out front, basically it just is telling you that that's a negative number. Now, when you have it in parentheses like this really means -4 multiplied by itself 4 times. So power actually matters. If it would have been -4 to the 2nd power, that would be a positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. If it was a 3rd power, it'd be a negative because if you have an odd number of negative factors, you get a negative answer. And so this has an even power, so it's going to be a positive 256. All right, so you can either finish watching the video and take notes and then go back and work on the problems, or I would really suggest you go ahead and practice these problems first and then turn the video back on for the next part. Okay, so for the second round here, number 2, we are going to figure out which of these is greatest. Now it's kind of hard to do on your calculator because I chose such big powers, so you have to think about it more. If you have a negative base and an odd number, so I'm multiplying -8 times itself 105 times, that's actually going to be a negative answer. So if I'm comparing that to -8 with an even power, which will be a positive number, for sure the positive one is going to be greater than the negative one. Okay, now on the second problem you have both of them are, well actually I'll let you think about that, but it's a negative base, they're both odds, so you have to think about what they're negative and which is more negative. Okay, on this one where the negative's out front, these are both going to be negative answers. So since this is -8 to the -106, this is more negative, which makes it smaller. So that one's going to be a bigger answer. Okay. Now, the way you deal with negative powers, I'll just give you a quick example. If I have 2 to the -3rd power, remember that flips. So think of that as 2 over 1. To make it a positive power, you just flip that. So it's 1/2 to the 3rd, which is 1 to the 3rd on top, 2 to the 3rd on the bottom, which is 8. So what I have to do in this case is figure out what 7 to the 5th is, and I'll use my calculator for that. Because your calculator won't handle such small negative numbers. So I'm just going to do 7 to the 5th, which is 16,807, and that's going to be my denominator. Now on the second problem, the negative in front just makes it a negative number, but again I have to flip the 8, so I have to figure out what 8 to the 4th is. 8 to the 4th power is 4,096, so it's 1 over 4,096. All right. And the last thing I want to show you on this is what happens when we have a fraction base. Well, if the base is less than 1, so like a fraction, so I'm just going to take this as an example. Remember that when you multiply a fraction a number of times, the more you multiply, the smaller it gets. 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Multiply that by half and you get 1/8. So every time I multiply by half, it actually gets smaller. So if I have a fraction, the more I multiply, the smaller it gets. So in this first pair, that one's going to be greater. Now remember what the odd power does to a negative, that this one will actually be a negative number, where this one will be a positive number because it has an even power. So for sure the positive one is going to be greater. All right, so go ahead and finish those up and then send me a nice photograph of your work, and then I'll get that retake to you. Good luck with that.